The 80s album that was supposed to be Elton John's biggest album of all time. It became successful, but it certainly didn't become his biggest, that's for sure. He's never outdone what he's done in the 70s. We talked to Stuart Epps, who engineered the album, and you'll find out what it is on Rock History Music. Why did Elton change? Do you know why he because I know Gus came back, obviously, but
yeah, well, Elton sort of changes things and always has done in his career, which is great, because otherwise he'd have still been doing Empty Sky, and then they changed direction for the Elton John. So he's always kind of making changes, admittedly maybe not for many years now, probably just his jackets and his suits and his socks and stuff, but he would change. And I mean, there might have been a time when even Elton was fed up with how long Gus would spend, and he might have just thought, I can't face another album, I can't go through it. Because actually what happened before Ice on Fire, Gus wasn't going to do that album, and Steve Brown he said, right, Elton's coming in to do an album. I said, oh great, yeah, because he's going to book loads of time. This is when Jimmy owned the studio. And I said, so who's producing? He says, I don't know. And I said, well, good, keep it at that, because I want to do it. We don't need a producer, you don't need someone else, we'll do it, we'll do it. And it was only about 2 weeks before the actual date, and I'm getting so excited about doing this album, and then Steve calls up. He says, well, I've got some news for you, we have got a producer, it's Gus. And as much as I love Gus, I was like, oh bugger, because Gus no longer owned the mill now. You see, Jimmy Page owned the mill, and I was kind of looking forward to doing it, and that was only the beginning, because Gus had been out of the picture for so long. He decided that this album is going to be the Elton album of all time. It's going to surpass anything that we've done before, and I can tell you, I'm giving you scoop after scoop here. So one of the things they decided for Ice on Fire was that instead of having just 10 songs to record, Elton's going to write 20 songs and pick the best 10. So that was pretty unique, because generally he'd only write the amount of songs needed for the album. So he'd written all these songs, 20 songs or whatever it was, and we start recording. But pretty soon they're talking about, they're all great, there's going to be 2 albums, or it's going to be a double album. But the thing with Ice on Fire, Gus had just, as I say, decided this was going to be the ultimate album. So I suppose he approached it a bit like the first Elton album, where there was going to be no expense spared whatsoever, and it's just going to be through the stratosphere as far as productions go. So he booked all these musicians. I was told you, like 4 drummers, 3 bass players, Nick Kershaw on guitar, Davy Johnston on guitar, different musicians for different tracks. And he was really going for it. And so we started doing this. I think the other problem was that what was up with Elton? I think he was bulimic. I think that's what it was. And he was smoking a lot of dope. So... but actually, all he was doing was mainly giggling throughout the whole album. All I remember is him giggling, like he was sitting on the settee, giggling away, while I'm having rows actually with Gus, because Gus decided that this was going to be the album of all time. So whereas he might only spend 2 hours on a drum solo or drum sound, he'd spend 10 hours, and I could see this album was never going to end. It's going to go on for years. And my son was about to be born. And I'd made this decision that I don't care what's happening at that time. I'm going to be there for the birth, and then I'm going to go off and look after him for a couple of months. And Gus is saying, what are you worried about? We're going to be finished this album in a few weeks. And I'm thinking, no, you're not. So it went on and on and on and on. It went on and on and on, a bit like Nikita, that song on the album. because I didn't hear any hits on it. I didn't hear any hits on the album. There was some good tracks, Ice on Fire. I couldn't hear any hits. And there was this one song, Nikita, that became a huge hit, as we know, but it was just totally boring. Every time we played it, it just would go on and on and on. And then it would go on, and then it would go into another middle eight. I don't know whether you've noticed there's two middle eights in it. And it's almost like you think it's finished, then it does it again. You think, oh no, I can't believe it. And it becomes this huge hit. And Nick Kershaw played on that one. The good thing about Ice on Fire was all these great people that came in. George Michael, although he was a bit mad. Nick Kershaw.
What do you mean he was a bit mad?
Well, he was running around everywhere, sort of with all these ideas. And I didn't really even know. Yeah, I knew he was a big artist with Wham, but he wasn't as big as Elton by no means, And he was telling Elton what to do. I mean, who knew whether he was gay or straight or whatever? And I guess Elton must have fancied him a bit. I don't know. There wasn't anything going on with them, but he was coming up with all these ideas, these crazy ideas, and Elton was just going, "Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, I'll do that." And I was thinking, why is he doing that? But we also had, like I say, the rhythm section of Queen. Well, we had the drummer. Do we have the bass player? I don't know.
John Deacon.
This is a good example for you. It's funny how all these drum things come up. Who's the drummer with Queen? Sorry, I forgot.
Roger Taylor.
Roger Taylor comes in, right? So Roger Taylor comes in. I don't know what track he played on, but he started out recording with the rest of the band, whoever that was. I don't know who that was. And Gus is having problems with the drums. He's having problems with Roger with the timing. Because actually Roger's much like a Nigel, isn't he? He's not intricate, he's straight.
Yeah.
And in the end, it's no word of a lie. He had Roger in the studio on his own playing to a click track. And Roger is like, he's in a bit of a state, to be honest, because I don't know if he hadn't been in the studio for a long time, but he wasn't used to being pushed around the way Gus was pushing him around, Like you got to stick here and you got to do this. And when it gets to this thing and when it goes to, and you could see Roger, he's like sweating away. He's like, like can't believe he just wished he hadn't said he would do this session,
Oh my God.
He wished he was anywhere else but doing this session, Because Gus he was ruthless, but he was such a great character that he did it in such a nice way you might not even notice.
Well, David Henschel told me on Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, I said, well, what about like the sound, the barnyard sounds on some songs? He said, they were all organic. We would go out in the field with a microphone, and if we needed a pig, or something.
But the thing with Gus is, you see, he was very organic as well, but he'd make something that was initially organic into the least organic thing by spending forever on it, so that something organic is supposed to happen quickly and supposed to be, put together. I'm sure recording a pig, I don't know where you get that from for Yellow Brick Road.
It was a Texan love song. I forget, there was one song, Roy Rogers.
Oh yeah, Roy.
We'll have more from Stuart Epps coming up the next few days. Remember, he produced so many people, engineered a lot of people. He was the engineer on the Coda album with Jimmy Page. Worked with The Firm, Twisted Sister, Elton John, Paul Rogers, Jimmy Page, and a host of others. If you want to get produced by him, he is available. Go to his website, stuartepps.co.uk. Remember, subscribe to our channel. We always love it when you join our team. Like our videos, spread the word, spread the videos on social media, and comment on them as well. I'm John Beaudin. This is Rock History Music.